the FPL General and the Prince Abdullah here to talk FPL. Welcome listeners and watchers to a very special edition of the FPL Surgery Podcast, coming to you on the 20th of July 2020, episode 180. We have two great guests on tonight. First guest has 3 top 1k finishes in FPL, with his best being 102. The legend that is FPL General, aka Mark McGettigan. Welcome to the podcast, Mark.
Hi Iceman, good to be here. It's been quite a while since we've done a podcast together, so glad we've been able to squeeze one in before the season finishes.
Yeah, it's nice to have you on. I mean, I can't believe you haven't been on yet. It's probably because you're too busy with your full-time FPL, isn't it?
I think it's because I never got that. What is it when you get a hat trick? Is it a mouse mat or something, or a coaster?
I've got to send you something. I'm due to send a lot of people things. I think I owe Stefan a shirt or something. So I've got. You're
going to be busy making trips to the post office during the summer.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, to join myself and Mark, we have none other than the owner of Sheffield United Football Club. He has 4 top 10k finishes in FPL, 2 within the top 200, with his best being 51st. Welcome to the podcast, Prince Abdullah Bin Mosaad.
Nice to be with you guys. I listen to your podcast, both of you, every week.
Good. I'm glad you do. We've been on for an interview before, and if you didn't know which episode that was, it was 147 listeners, so if you want to listen back to that. But did you get any feedback from that particular episode, Prince?
Yes, I mean, I have a lot of Saudi friends who follow fantasy, and they love fantasy. We have a big mini league, which is really competitive, and I'm now leading by 40 more points, leading my brother, so I don't want him to catch me.
Oh, you couldn't wait to get that in there, can you? Yeah. He's going to listen back to this and just be...
Fantasy, Premier League fantasy is very popular here in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I have seen that. We also get quite a lot of comments on Twitter from a lot of Saudis, so yeah, it's interesting. Well, great to have you both on, FPL royalty and actual royalty. Thank you for being here with me. Just to make the listeners aware, this isn't only an audio podcast, it's also a visual one. So you can see us on YouTube. If you search FPL Surgery, you can see our beautiful faces there. To sum up what we're going to do on this episode, the first part of the podcast, we're going to go over both the Prince and the General season, what strategies they have kept to, etc., and see where that takes us. And then the second part, we'll be going over listener questions, and then we'll finish on who we think to have for game week 38. Right, let's get into this then. So your seasons so far, I'll come to you first, Prince Abdullah. Back in October, you said you were 394,000. Now you're currently ranked at 2,960 before tonight's games. So you're having a great season. Can you please tell us what strategies and rules you've kept to this season?
I always use the same strategy. Maybe this year I didn't take too many hits. I usually watch all the games. I think I have an advantage over both of you guys. I really don't miss a Premier League game. I don't travel. I don't, no family visits, nothing. I mean, when it's Premier League, it's Premier League. I sit and watch all the games. So I think that's an advantage. It's one thing reading the stats and looking at the numbers, but when you watch the game, it's different. Usually one of my faults that I'm not very patient. I tend to do my transfers early. But I haven't been punished this year. So like most of the players I bring, that's why I have also, it's an advantage when you have I always have high team value, but I'm doing okay. I think if it was not for the stop and the extra transfers, I may done better. But I think the free transfers maybe hurt me a little, but I can't complain.
So you do your early transfers, just based on you want to get your transfers out early, or are you searching for that team value?
I usually, as I said, watch the games and look at the fixtures and see who's becoming hot and those sort of things. And I also believe, I'm starting to believe more and more now that you remember when we made that podcast, I told you, like, when you have Mane, for instance, and he's hot and Salah is not doing very well, I think it's time to do to switch to Salah. And I think that, so sometimes, like, when you have hot players, you need to know when it's time to jump out of them and go to like good players who haven't performed yet, because eventually all of them get their numbers, most of them.
Yeah, well, you've had both Salah and Mane because I've seen you've captained both of them. They're your two most captained players this season. I looked on FPLreview.com and it looks like most of your points from captaincy come from them two. So you've actually captained 14 different players over this season as well. And I know you mentioned on that podcast that 2 years ago you perma-captained Kane and you didn't do so well. So this year you tend to go with your gut.
Yes.
And you also said that you would be okay if you went with your gut if you got a red arrow because it's more that it's your fault type of thing. Is that how you've kind of followed this year then?
Here, the 1 week I was really like down and not happy with myself is the 1 week I didn't go with my gut, and it only cost me 4 points. It's like 2 weeks ago I captained Jimenez, but I had Doherty as a captain. Like I changed it 3 minutes before deadline, and Doherty got 6 points and Jimenez got 2. But other than that, I don't regret it. I just picked the captain I think will perform better, and I go with them. I don't let anything influence me. Maybe only information, but not.
So what influenced you on that occasion though? So you say you didn't go with your gut, but on that occasion,
for some reason my sleep is messed up, and I woke up early, and I had my iPad with me, and then I checked all the live captain, and it was everybody was captaining Jimenez, and I said, okay, so I'm now my ranking is good. If I go with if I don't go with Jimenez and he scores like 2 goals, then I will lose a lot of ranking. So I did that, but it was a horrible week. It was the first game of the week, and it's not good when you miss the first game of the week. I mean, usually when in doubt, I like to pick the last game of the week to have my captain. So you're always happy. I mean,
you're always captaining in the last game. It always gives you hope. Yeah. I was the same that week. I was on Jimenez. I think that was a very long game week as well. It was the best part of a week. So once your captain fails in the first game, it's going to be a red arrow basically, and you just have to watch everybody else's captains do well for days and days.
I hate that thinking though. It doesn't make sense. For a logical point of view, you should just go with who you think's the best captain. Surely that's what you should do. But I know there's that on the back of your mind thinking, if I just do it later, then I'm not going to have a dreadful weekend type of thinking.
But don't you think part of the game is having fun?
Yeah, no, yeah, it's true.
I have it for the last week. I mean, for me, if you also believe in high power, I pray all that week. My player get more points. You have more time to play.
So you mentioned that you were looking at live captain. Where were you looking at that from? Was that the live FPL?
I think.
So Fantasy Football Fix. Oh,
yes.
Okay, yeah, okay. I looked at your season review. Who do you think that has scored you the most points this season?
I would say it has to be one of the usual suspects. Mane, maybe.
Yeah, yes, it is Mane. Yeah, he is top on 235. KDB has given you 181.
Yeah.
I think Salah. Let me just get up because I've got your team here on season reviews, which you can see on the video, listeners. So you can see that his captaincy's there, 136 from Salah and 104 from Mane. So it looks like you've captained Salah more, but yeah, your points, Mane's taken the brunt of those lot.
Mattered most that week when he had the double week. I didn't triple captain him then. I captained him. I was going to captain Mane. I don't want to bring bad memories to Mark, but I captained Salah. But I wish I could have. Did triple captain him, but I didn't.
That been bad memories for you, Mark?
You almost lost me from the podcast there. I was just going to hang up. Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about triple captaincy later, but that was a painful one. But again, just one of those things you can't. Mane, one of the fittest players in the league, who never gets injured, and then of course he goes down in the first game of a double game.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Let's move on to your team now then, Mark. How are you getting on so far this season? You're currently ranked 20k before tonight's games. But firstly, though, I've made a transfer from Jimenez to Wood this week, and I know that the Wolves game will be on in the background. I want no celebrating. I've already warned you that I'm going to appear with a donkey face if you do celebrate, so just beware.
I've got my sombrero and my Corona ready to pop it open as soon as he scores.
Yeah, as soon as Jimenez scores, then there'll be lots of celebrations for you two, but not for me. No, I'm not looking
I
forward
don't
to
have
that.
Jimenez, so I'm with you.
Oh, you don't? Oh, that's okay.
I'll be the only one celebrating then.
I've got it ready anyway, for as the listeners can see, just in case. All right, so your season so far. I think let's move it down to the questions that we got. We did get a couple of questions to this. One from at an entity abroad from our Slack channel. He asks, the General has a list of FPL rules that he sticks to. I'm wondering if anything he's learnt this year that will change those rules. And also, Mark at mbison22 from Twitter is saying as well, can the General finally reveal his golden rules of FPL that he has written down on a post-it note on his computer?
Yeah, so I don't know if you have an image of, for the viewers, or do you want me to just run through these?
I do have an image. I will pop that up on the screen now.
I'll go through it anyway for the audio listener. So it's not very long. I mean, it's not any rocket science formula. It's pretty basic stuff. But basically, when this season started, I had my worst ever season last season. I finished over 500k, so it brought me back down to earth after probably 5 or 6 pretty good seasons. So it was a case of, for me, going back to basics this year and just trying to simplify things and go back to what has worked for me in the past. So back in August time, I just printed out an A4 sheet of paper with a couple of bullet points on it, and I just stuck it up beside my computer. So every time when it came to making a transfer, then I had that in the background. I would go through the checklist. So very simple. I'll just run through it, have a plan and stick to it, avoid bandwagons, avoid injury-prone players, which I made a list of them. Danny Ings was on it, which went against me, so maybe that's something I will, look at next season. Maybe not to be as strict with that one. No transfers until Friday, unless I have 0.0 million in the bank. Don't worry about team value. Identify captain picks a few weeks in advance. Have a core group of players and trust them long term. I think that comes down to patience. Focus on the top teams, 3 City players and 3 Liverpool players as often as possible. Don't let fear rule your transfers. Eye test number 1, backed up by the stats. Be open to a new approach with the chips. And don't be afraid of hits if they drastically improve the squad. And the big one for me, I think, is bank a transfer as often as possible. So I followed that pretty strictly this season. I think I have banked a transfer very often. And then having those 2 free transfers plus the extra week of information, it leaves you very flexible. And it opens the door for the mini wildcard. Then you can take a -4, make 3 transfers, and then your team can look quite drastically different after that. So yeah, it's been a patient season. Not many hits, probably 3 or 4 hits over the course of the season, which is pretty standard for me going back to my good season. So again, back to what worked in previous seasons, and it's been a slow and steady climb. I got lucky with the break. I played my wildcard just before. I think it was game week 26. So I think I got 3 game weeks out of that wild card, and I did well. I went from about 110k up to around 40 or 50, and then I was able just to climb since the restart. So that was a well-timed second wild card.
Yeah, I think it moves back to what the Prince said, really, having fun. And, keeping those 2 transfers, doesn't that make you just feel really comfortable that you're in control of what's going on a little bit more? How you've just always got that one transfer that you can be like, right, well, if this happens or this happens, I'm able to change that around. It makes me feel comfortable anyway.
Yeah. It's just, you almost feel more powerful, especially, it's not even just the 2 free transfers. I think the extra week of information, because we know so much changes very quickly in FPL. You'll have a player who's everyone wants him 1 week, the following week people are selling him. So, this is a good example. Go down to game week 38. I thought that's the ideal time to save yourself a transfer, because we're going to get unpredictable lineups probably on the final day. So you've got those 2 free transfers just to leave yourself flexible. It's very hard to move from a big striker to a big midfielder with just one transfer. So I always try and do that as often as possible.
Yeah, but Prince, do you keep to any of those rules, or any of those which you definitely do? I know you don't keep to the Friday one, but any others which?
I don't like injury-prone players. I don't like players who don't start. I mean, that's definite no. I mean, my bench players have, even the backup goalkeeper, except for this seed. Usually, I like to have 2 goalkeepers who play, a bench, all of them who play. I don't like, as I said, injury-prone players. I don't go with the like bandwagon. Like if a player who usually doesn't score a lot and he had like back-to-back, and everybody bring him, I like it, because that's for me a wasted transfer for my competitors. So I don't go with what everybody like with the crowd sometimes. I also use my first wild card early because I think to build team value, and I usually use it in between week 2 and 4. I don't use my second wild card until like the doubles and free hit. I keep those chips to the end of the season. I use my triple captain in a double week usually. This week I didn't do it. I thought that would be double week left, but then there was no double week, so I used Martial last week,
which worked out really well for you, didn't it?
Very well, and it could have been much better. I think Martial missed like one great chance at the beginning of the game, but I can't complain. He got me, I think, 13 points, 39. So that's it. I use I'm flexible with my first wild card. I'm like strict with my ships. I don't use them till late in the season.
Yeah.
No, every player in my roster has to be a starter, and I read. Of course, I follow. Like I read all. Like I follow the NFL. The NFL. I follow Premier League and all the news, and I follow the news. I follow but at the end of the day, maybe my sin is just because I'm not patient. I don't. That clear advantage. I build up team value. I usually do my transfers early.
Yeah. I know you mentioned on the last podcast that we're on the interview, you're saying that you haven't paid too much attention to articles. You kind of are aware of them, but you don't let them affect your decisions as much. So, like you were saying, with the going with your gut more. That's more what you do. Yeah.
I think what is gut? Gut is like all the experience you have with the information you have, and then the more experience, the more education, the more information you have. That's what make guts.
Yeah.
It's like you go to the kitchen inside you, and the kitchen just tell you like, this is what you should do, and you don't know why you think that. But I'm sure it's usually based on many information you have and many past things that happened to you. So that's like gut is, for me, it's not luck or something random. It's something you reach from your experience and the information you have. You don't know maybe sometimes how, but it's based on solid things usually.
Yeah, past information as well. Well, so found out something new. Prince Abdullah makes his decisions in the kitchen. General, what's your thoughts on the wild card? I know, when did you use yours? At the start of the season and towards the end of the season? You said you used it before the break, didn't you?
Yeah, so the second one was in game week 26, and the first one, usually I would be like Abdullah and I would play it quite early. Game week 4 or 5, maybe, would have been quite a common time for me in the past. But this season, I went into the season and I didn't, sometimes in previous seasons I would say, right, I'm going to set up for the first 4 weeks and then I'm going to wildcard. I'm going to set up for the first 6 weeks and then I'm going to wildcard. But this season I didn't. I went in with an open mind and I thought, if things go well, I'll keep it. But if I need it, I'll use it. And I ended up keeping it to the very last minute, which was, I think, game week 19 going into game week 20. So right at the end of December. And even when I played it, I think I made 4 changes. I think I made 2 changes in my starting 11 and 2 changes on the bench. So it was a case of I was very happy with my squad for most of the season. So I think people fall into the trap with a wild card. You feel like you need to make loads of changes just because you've got a wild card, but it should really only be used to make those essential, weak areas of your squad stronger. So, and I even made mistakes on the wild card. I played it late and I got rid of Nick Pope in game week 20, and then second wild card game week 26, I got him straight back in because I think it's important in FPL as well. Any mistakes you make, don't be stubborn. Go back and fix them.
Yeah.
So yeah. This season was a strange one, keeping it for so long. It felt very strange, but at the same time, there was no point before that where I felt that I really needed it. When I was saving a transfer most weeks anyway, I was able to manage the squad quite efficiently. So it never needed loads and loads of changes. So again, next season will be the same. I won't have a plan. I won't say I'm going to play it early. I'm going to play it late. I think you've got to just see how the season pans out to begin with.
Staying flexible, that's the key. How you got 134 points from Pope this season, so you gained off him. Who do you think is your biggest scorer this season?
It's probably going to be one of the big guys. Probably Trent or KDB would be my guess, I think.
No, it's Salah on
interesting.
233. Then it's KDB, and then I think it is Trent.
I couldn't mention Salah there because I sold him before his 18-pointer last week. So
you are like that with certain things, aren't you? Where if they've done something too good, you're like, I can't even talk about them.
I know, it's like Danny Ings. I don't think Danny Ings' name has ever been mentioned on my 59th minute podcast because it hurts me too much to talk about him.
Yeah, he's one of the top goal scorers. Did you know that? Yeah, he's doing well.
That was a good penalty at the weekend, wasn't it?
Yes, yes, and the miss was good for me considering I didn't have him. Let's move on. So also you've captained 12 different captains this season as well, so you're keeping it quite flexible.
Yeah, captaincy. Do you know what? Captaincy is the thing I hate most about FPL. To be honest, I don't think I've done very well. I'll go back at the end of the season and look at the percentage of how many successful captains I've done. But I did a few Patreon podcasts looking at Magnus Carlsen and I think Chris McGowan, who was world number one for a while as well. And when I was comparing my own captaincy to their captaincies, I was way behind. It's something that really, it's something I don't like about the game. I wish there was
a lucky aspect.
Yeah, it adds a lot of variance, and if you get a few wrong, then you try and start second guessing yourself. And it's just something I've always struggled with is the captaincy.
Yeah. Right, let's move on then. So a question to both of you now. Which teams and all players have impressed you the most this season? I'll come to you first, Abdullah. Who's impressed you the most? Back on the podcast that we're on, I know Jamie Vardy was one that you really wanted.
You're talking fantasy, not real.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Trent Alexander for me this year is, I wonder how much he will be priced next year. I think the highest we had a defender is 7.5, right?
Yeah, I think Baines, 7.5.
Maybe time to have maybe our first 8 million defender next year.
Yeah, because he's practically a midfielder.
Yes, I think Trent Alexander, De Bruyne this year was really, was great. Who else? Of course, Lundstrom, like the first half of the and he's one of the players actually who hurt my ranking. I didn't start him in my team when he scored 12 points against Everton. He wasn't he was on my bench. So I think I would say Trent Alexander and De Bruyne and Mane.
Yeah. I remember you saying on the last pod that you almost commit suicide because he was always, whenever he scored big, he was on your bench.
Yes, but I think. I told you, let's just, talk about the elephant in the room, McBurnie, because I'm sure you'll break that.
I was going to get onto that on the questions. I'm definitely getting to it. Don't you worry. I'll come to General first. Who's impressed you the most, Mark, and teams and players so far this season?
Yeah, I think teams will stand out. I think in terms of just pure Premier League and also for FPL as well. Lots of value in their defence, the likes of Saiss and Bowley since he's come back, and Traore's been good at times as well. And Jimenez we all said he was too expensive at the start of the season, and he just did it again. Sheffield United as well, Abdullah mentioned there, Lundstrom, but I think even the likes of, the wing-back Stevens and Baldock, the way they play, and Dean Henderson. Dean Henderson's been amazing. As a Manchester United fan, I hope he's in my team next season, not in Abdullah's team. So I'll be interested to see what happens there. A few others. That man Danny Ings has been amazing. I've barely owned him all season, but he's just had a phenomenal season. Every time I watch a Southampton game, I'm just waiting for him to score. Or if I'm not watching the game, I'm waiting for the notification to come through. I think Martial as well, especially since the restart. Out of position, very cheap. Manchester United player. He's really upped his game as well, and he's probably going to be a forward next season. So we need to enjoy him for the last couple of games while we can.
Yeah, great shouts in there. I do think that Wolves and definitely your Sheffield United have impressed me quite a lot this season. Been a team which have been steady for points, especially Henderson. I suppose you're going to be pretty gutted when Henderson goes this season, are you?
I have a feeling, I'd say it's 50-50 he will stay. I don't think Manchester United is yet ready to start him over De Gea, and I don't think he will like to be bench. So I think we have a good chance of getting him Henderson for next year.
Okay, yeah. Fair enough. Right, let's move on to the listener questions now, because we've got a few here. I'm going to open up with a couple of questions for both of you then. So Flapjack at Flapjack FPL is saying on Twitter, what are your favourite ever FPL captaincies, and what has your history of the triple captain been like over the years? If you want to answer that one first, Abdullah.
I one time captained Dempsey when he scored a hat-trick with Fulham.
Oh, nice.
One time I captained Benteke. I think he was with Aston Villa, and he scored also hat-trick. And my best one, I think, is Gerrard in a double week when he scored hat-trick against Everton. That was the year I finished 194 overall. And I think captaining, if I'm not mistaken, it was Gerrard, I think. Everybody captained Suarez that week, but I captained Gerrard, and he got hat-trick against Everton, and the clean sheet, and the 3-point bonus, of course.
Yeah, so that was the year 2012, 2013.
I wasn't captained a lot by a lot of, the key is not only to captain somebody who will hat-trick. If nobody, not a lot of people captained him, that make a huge difference in your rank.
Yeah. And what about your triple captaincy, which has been your best? Who have you triple captained this year? So it was Martial, so it's gone pretty well. What about last year and the year before?
The year before it was Kane when he had the hat-trick.
Oh, nice.
That's complete.
The year before that, do you remember?
Was Lukaku with Everton in a double weekend. He got me 4 points.
Never forget that one.
No, yeah. What about you then, Mark?
Yeah, I've already told you that I hate captaincy, so I was trying to think of how many memorable captaincies that I have, and I definitely don't have as many as Abdullah. The only one that really stands out to me is, I've mentioned it a few times before, is Theo Walcott, game week 38 a few years ago, when he scored the hat-trick.
Yeah.
I was going into the final day against my mini league rival. He was 31 points ahead of me going into the final day. He captained Suarez, and I not Suarez, sorry, Sanchez for Arsenal, and I captained Walcott. Arsenal won 5-0. Walcott got the hat-trick, and I don't think Sanchez even got an assist that day. So I ended up winning the mini league on the final day thanks to 40 points, I think Theo got me. So I'm going to have to put up that. Nick Pope's going to go up here on one side, and I'll put Theo Walcott on the other side then.
Legend, FPL legend.
That's it. I was trying to explain to people who are new to FPL that Theo Walcott actually used to be good for scoring points.
Yeah.
A triple captaincy then, I had a look. I actually couldn't remember last season, so I had to go back. This season, as mentioned, Sadio Mane, we won't talk anymore about that one. But previously, it's been okay. Last season, I went for, I think it was Sadio Mane last season as well, when Liverpool beat Huddersfield 5-0. But Salah actually outscored him that day. I remember Mane hit the post right at the end. It would have been a hat-trick, but I think Salah got an assist that day, and he outscored Mane, which was frustrating. And the defenders, Robertson ranked up a big score that week as well. The season before, Kane got me 24, and the season before that, Aguero got me 27. So nothing spectacular, but a lot better than what this season was.
Yeah. I also I think my captaincies would be the Theo Walcott one game at 38, and also I think the next year Giroud scored a hat trick as well, and I put my captaincy on him, and that was my most memorable captaincies. And I think my triple captaincy put it on Sanchez that time when both Sanchez and Aguero both scored equally the same points. So I thought I had one over because I think Sanchez played first, but yeah, they both
got. I think that they both get 25. So whatever.
Yeah, I think it was 25.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
You know, that game week is the last time. That's the last time I've scored over 100 points in a game week. I think it's 4 years ago since I've scored 100 plus, which is crazy. So I'm more of a steady Eddie. You know, I don't get massive game weeks, but I think it was something like 178 that week, and I haven't gone over 100 since.
Wow, amazing. Right, let's move it on then. So next question is from an entity abroad saying, interested to hear they are already thinking about players for next season. Are there any players that will be in your teams no matter what, no matter the cost? Prince Abdullah, go to you first.
I don't think you can say despite of the cost. You have to look at the fixture list. But having said that, maybe Kane will be priced down and then you will be a must. But if he's priced high, I don't think he'll be a must. I think you need to look at the prices, because if you look at this year, I think it's there are so many good players. I don't think there is a template team now anymore. So Depends on the pricing. I think it's. I mean, you have like 10 now, maybe 10 or 15 good midfielders. You don't have as much as good forwards. So maybe if they move Martial forward, so it's too early. I don't see anybody who's a must, but I have to look at the prices.
Yeah, it depends on prices. What about you then, Mark?
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, this season, this feels like it's been going on forever. It's almost 12 months long at this stage. So it's been a bit of a grind recently in the last couple of weeks. So to be honest, I'm just looking forward to getting this one done, have a bit of reflection for a couple of weeks, and then, like Abdullah, just wait until the prices come out, because it's very easy now to sit down and say, I'm going to have Trent, I'm going to have KDB, I'm going to have Jimenez, but we all know what happens. The prices go up, and it's very hard to build a game week 1 team. So I think until we get those prices, until we get those fixtures, I'm just going to chill and just enjoy the rest of this season.
Right, let's move on to some personal questions now then. So a couple for you, Prince. So we've got one here, Rodney at FPL Dave 1. He's saying, ask him what happened with his McBurnie prediction earlier in the season. Did he stick with him? Now, okay, Prince, myself and the FPL General both run a podcast, and we have to be accountable for our picks on the pod, and we will get slated on the Twitter, so you almost deserve this, because in terms of the numbers, he's been bad.
I said, mark my words. I went to listen to the podcast. I said, mark my words, you'll have between 9 and 10 goals from that point till the end of the season. He had from that point, he had 5 goals and 1 assist, and there is still 1 game to go. So that's 6 returns. So if he scores 2 goals, I'll miss by 1. It wasn't a very bad prediction.
So what you're saying is he's guaranteed a hat trick on the final day.
Yeah, okay, bring him in. He's saying
a podcast next week.
You have to put him. You have to put him in your free hit team now.
Yeah, you have to.
I mean, maybe I'll put him in my free team. I mean, I haven't put my free team because of what Guardiola said. I was really relieved that Guardiola said that he will play everybody the next 2 games. So maybe we'll have an idea who the 3 City players which I should pick for, because I know that I will have 3 City players, Manchester City, but I don't know which 3. So whoever start the week tomorrow against Watford, maybe will not be in my team. I know that David Silva probably will be in my team because it's his last game. Maybe they will give him penalties. Maybe he will. But the other 2, I don't know yet.
Yeah. So the one thing I was going to mention as well, you did say, because I asked you, would you put money on it for him to finish on 9 to 10 goals, and then you said I would transfer him. So are you transferring out McBurnie after just scoring 6 goals and 1? Are you going to transfer him out of Sheffield United?
I mean, so there is still 1 game to go, and I think I'll choose to forget about that one. He cost us a lot of money to transfer him out.
Yeah,
and you know what? I'll give you a prediction which I will never change. He will be in my team starting next year, because I think our defense will be priced out. I mean, they'll be so expensive. So I think I will go for like offense with Sheffield. I think they will be underpriced. McBurnie, maybe Mosaad, like all our forwards will be underpriced. So I think
4.5.
Yeah, if he's, McBurnie will be in my team week 1.
Okay, I'll hold you to that.
Yes, hold me to that.
Yeah, you remember. Also, we've got another question here. I heard that he watches matches on 6 different screens at the same time. Is that true? Now, for the visual watchers on YouTube, I will put up a picture of your 6 screens all dotted around your one massive screen. So obviously that is true, and you do that on a link from. Was it from your house in Beverly Hills? Is that it?
I have this system called Savant where you can like tile the screen to many screens. So actually, I do have 6 screens in my house in Los Angeles and in Riyadh, and I can watch 10 games at a time. Not like the last game of the year, I watch all, like next Sunday. If you're in my house, you can watch all 10 games. You know, I'm not into anything luxury. I'm not into cars, watches, anything. But when it comes to Premier League and watching Premier League, I'm all in.
It's the life. It is the life, isn't it, Mark?
It's like you got your priorities right. I mean, nothing's more luxurious than watching 10 Premier League games at the same time.
God, the concentration and the clicking on livefpl.net constantly and seeing where you are. And oh God,
that's what I mean. That is what life's all about.
Guys, maybe Sunday I should FaceTime both of you, and you can watch the games. I have all 10 games for you, and
yeah, let's do it. Yeah,
sounds good.
Yeah, awesome. Well, this brings me to you then, Mark, on your full-time FPL. We had a question here, Josh Paxman. He's going to be one of the new hosts for the surgery. What does a typical week look like for someone whose full-time job is FPL? Do you want to explain that one?
Yeah, that's a good question from Josh, and a great guest, or a great person to fill your shoes as well on the podcast. Top manager. I met him a few times in London at the meetup, so looking forward to that next season. So, what is a typical week like for me? I had to really think about this and write it down because my schedule is all over the place most weeks. But typically, so my wife is a primary school teacher, so I take her to work most days about 8 o'clock in the morning, and I pick her up again about 4:30. So I try and work around her. So I'll be home 8:30. So I'll work usually from about 9 until 4 on the laptop, and then once she calls me to come and get her, I'll shut it down and try not to do anything in the evening. So I try and take a Wednesday off as well, because as much as I try and switch off at the weekends and spend time with her, I mean, there's football on the telly all the time, so you never switch off from FPL on a Saturday and a Sunday. So I try and take the Wednesday off as much as possible. Start of the week is really watching the games that I've recorded from the weekend, watching match of the day, looking at the stats, interacting with patrons, recording some eye test podcasts for them. Tuesday, I record my own 59th minute podcast. When it's a regular season, I record it on a Tuesday. Obviously, it's been all over the place these days. Interacting with patrons on Slack and WhatsApp. So I've got 100 WhatsApp patrons, so that's quite time consuming. So it's having, daily conversations with most of those people, about FPL strategy and all that kind of stuff. Quiet day on Wednesday.
Doherty just got an assist.
Who got an assist?
Doherty. Yes.
Who scored the goal?
I think not Jimenez for sure. I did see. It wasn't Jimenez.
I don't care if it wasn't Jimenez.
Yeah.
So that's quiet day on Wednesday, and then Thursday is usually a day of writing. So I do my athletic article and my Fantasy Football Hub article usually on a Thursday, and then Friday I follow the press conferences to put those together for patrons as well. All the important team news information, any quotes from the managers. Usually on a Friday afternoon as well, I Skype into Fox Asia in Singapore. It's the John Dyke Show. So I do about a half an hour every Friday there as well, which is always good fun. A Q&A for The Athletic on a Friday usually as well, and another Patreon podcast. And I do a couple of hours on a Saturday morning as well, say 9:30 to 11:30, just before the deadline. Just again, WhatsApp, patrons, Slack and all that kind of stuff. And once the deadline comes, I take a deep breath and just enjoy the weekend then as much as possible, and try not to switch the laptop back on until Monday morning. So that's really the structure of my week. And it sounds, when you're full-time FPL, you think you have all the time in the world to do it, but like I say, stuff like WhatsApp, it's very time consuming. So like when you're having fun, time flies by, and the time really does disappear.
Yeah, it sounds like a really busy week. No wonder you don't message me back straight away after yesterday. Where were you? You were travelling yesterday. So
yeah, we were coming back from Ireland yesterday, so I had a good excuse yesterday.
Yeah, I'll let you off. Yeah. Well, we'll move back to you then, Prince. So we've got a load of other questions here. I'm going to drop one on you. So Andrew Ferguson at Fergie222 from FF Hub is saying, is fantasy football played and chatted about much at the club? Do they have a Sheffield United mini league?
I don't know, but I know that the players know about it. Like when I met the players in Dubai, I think I chatted with Lundstrom about fantasy, so they know about it. They're aware about it, but I don't know if they play or not. And when Sharp signed his new contract, it was I sent him a WhatsApp, and I had him on my team. And in the double week after the restart, I told him, "You better score now."
And he didn't. So he
came close. Actually, he played very well.
He did, yeah.
Hit the post once, and he almost scored another time. So I was happy with him. But sometimes, I'll WhatsApp some players. You better do well this week.
The thing is, though, going back on the podcast that we had the interview on, you said that McBurnie would do well. So I thought, right, I'm going to mark your words on this one, and I'm going to put him in my free hit.
10 goals, he had 6 offensive returns. Come on, you can't be that.
I know, but he didn't score them in that free hit week, and
Yes. But I told him that he had that I was not going to get him. I'm getting sharp. You didn't have to get Ozil, and I got Ozil, and he didn't start. He didn't score me 1 point. He was in the bench for the 2 games.
Still gonna hurt. I'm gonna come back to you now, Mark. So we've got one here from the Hitman on Slack saying, compare how you handle your bad game weeks versus the general. So he's mentioned that I'm quite easy going when it comes to a bad game week. What about you on a bad game week?
Yeah, I think he's picked up that I'm not as bubbly on a podcast the week after I have a bad one. I haven't really noticed it myself, but it probably is true. I think anyone who takes fantasy seriously, if you have to record a podcast after a bad week, it's a very hard thing to do. If you're pissed off about how things have gone, you've got to try and sound upbeat about the next game week, even if things have gone wrong. So I used to be really bad after a bad game week. I used to let it affect me too much. Maybe it would affect some of my decisions then the following week. But I've kind of trained myself to deal with it a lot better. I'm very good now at just enjoying the game for what it is. I mean, even last season I was 500k and I was still, posting on Twitter regularly and making fun out of myself. And I think that's the most important thing. You can't take it too seriously, even if things are going badly. It's only one season. A new season comes around very quickly, and you can bounce back and have your best one ever. So yeah, it's very important not to have. It's very important to deal with bad game weeks well. I think it's one of the most important things about FPL. Switch it off for a couple of days. Come back on Thursday or Friday with a fresh mindset. Then you won't make bad, knee-jerk transfers.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to come last question for you then, Prince. So from Late Riser 12, who will be on the podcast on Thursday, does he take into account anyone's advice while making his FPL decisions?
I used to do that a lot, but this year I decided just to do it myself. And if I do bad, I just feel mad at myself. And I watch all the I listen to both of your podcasts. Really, I don't miss any of them. And I watch some of the YouTube, Fantasy Fix YouTubes, but to get mainly information. But usually I whatever team, I will choose my captain as soon as the week open, for next week. And usually I don't let myself change it unless there is a new information. And I listen to everything, but I usually do with my own opinion.
Yeah. It's a good way to be. Right, come back to you then, Mark. Question here from another Mark. Mark H from our Slack is saying, do you feel having your own podcast and giving FPL advice has affected your own individual FPL performance?
Yeah, well, definitely, 100%, especially last season. I think people like myself and yourself, James, when you have to be accountable, as you say, and when you have to come back week after week, whether things are going well or things are going badly, it does make things, it brings its own pressure in a way, I think. Especially, if you're very active on social media, on Twitter as well, everyone is watching your every move. And you do feel that in a way. And I think even without knowing it, it probably affects us. We probably make certain transfers, maybe safe transfers, whereas maybe if we were a nobody with, no podcast, no Twitter account, just playing the game ourselves, maybe we'd be a bit more brave with certain decisions, captaincy decisions and all that kind of stuff. But I think I've always been a very safe, boring manager anyway. So I would like to think that, the podcast and the Twitter doesn't affect me too much. I think it probably did last season. I probably did let things affect me too much. I was just spending way too much time, talking about FPL to people. And when it came to a Friday, I didn't have, my brain was fried. Yeah. So I've addressed that this season, put a limit on how many WhatsApp patrons I have and stuff like that. And it's definitely made a big difference.
Yeah, no, I totally feel that. I mean, I suppose the hard thing about your particular podcast is that it's all on you, whereas I always have great guests like yourself and the Prince, etc. So a lot of people are following them, and I've had Stefan on as well, and a lot of people are following his team. So I think it's easier for me than it is for you. I do try not to. I mean, I'm having a terrible season this season, but I try not to let it affect me in any way what I decide, and I don't feel like it does, but subconsciously it still might. So
yeah.
I have a question for Mark. Is it a disadvantage to post your team? You always send your team before the deadline. I think it's if everybody sees your team, it's a disadvantage to you or not?
I only do it. I only share my team with the Patreon subscribers. I don't do it on Twitter. So I always wait just 1 minute after the deadline on Twitter, because I don't like to share it. I don't mind sharing it with maybe a couple of hundred people, but I don't want to share it with 100,000 people. So, but that doesn't really affect me. I think at the end of the day, it's my team. I do have some issues sometimes at the start of the season, maybe first 3 or 4 weeks, where I'll have some people who will just copy every single transfer. But it's very easy for me to track those people, and I just send them a message and say, listen, this is not what Patreon's about. I don't want you to just copy everything that I do. I want you to become a better manager, make your own decisions. And we just have a discussion, and usually most of the time it's fine, and then they stop. So no, it doesn't bother me to share it, because it's up to other people then. I think most patrons, they'll do their own thing anyway. I think they like to see the team, but most of them will still, they're like you, they'll do their own thing at the end of the day.
Okay.
Yeah, great answer. So, right, okay, I think we're done with the questions now. Thank you for all your questions, listeners. Let's move on to the players for GW38. So now you're on free hit, Abdullah. Mark, you are not, but who are the must-haves for this game week? Come to you first, Prince.
I'm thinking about all the players who are competing for the Golden Boot. So maybe I'll have Salah, maybe I'll have Aubameyang, maybe I'll have Ings, but I don't want to have Ings because he plays Sheffield United, so maybe he's out of my. But David Silva, I think if it's his last game, I think he'll be in my team. I think you'll have to. It will be 3 City players, as I said. I'll wait for the Watford game to decide what 3 City players. I like also maybe I'll bring Antonio because they play Aston Villa. West Ham will play Aston Villa at home, and I don't. Maybe I'll bring West Ham also defense. So maybe Cresswell. I haven't put my team yet, but I'll do that Friday and Saturday, and then I'll be stuck in my office, close the door, and read Twitter and make final just before the deadline.
Yeah, that's sometimes probably a good idea. Like if you're free hitting, do all your discussions in your groups, in your Slack groups and Twitter groups and things early. And then I think that maybe you should set 2 teams, like one team that you want and you're looking at, and that's like a safe pick. And then then choose another team with players that you would only choose if you get that early team news, which we might get. And then just have them ready, but don't let things on Twitter, like you say, affect you as much. Because, yeah, it could all go wrong if you're letting things last minute affect you. What about you then, Mark? Any must-haves for this game week?
I think the only must-haves, I think, are 3 City players. And, again, we won't really know who they are until we see how they line up against Watford. Like you say, hopefully we get that early team news, which would really help those on free hit or anyone who has a triple captain or anything like that left. But the must-haves are only Man City. And then I think free hit, if you're on free hit in 38, it depends what scenario you're in. So, I mean, if you're like Prince Abdullah and you're having an amazing season, you're probably going to stick to the regular, high-scoring players, the popular picks. I think if there's going to be a lot of people on free hit who are, way behind in their mini league, they're, maybe outside where they want to be in overall rankings, and you've got to go for it in that case. I seen a good tweet from Trigger Lips today on Twitter, a very experienced FPL manager, and it's just about, there's no point on your free hit, going for Salah, going for Ings, going for all these players that everyone else is going to have. If you need to make up ground, it's 1 week, it's the last game of the season. Go for those players that no one else is going to have. You can. There's differentials in every team. You can still focus on the teams who have something to play for, but there's examples. People are going to go for Trent Alexander-Arnold. Why don't you go for Gomez or Van Dijk? Just little things like that, and just change it up. Because if you're going to catch your mini league leader, or if you're going to make up 10, 20, 30,000 places in the rankings, you've got to do something different, and you've got to pick a differential captain as well for the final day. So that's my advice. Go for it if you need to.
Who's your biggest differential?
Biggest differential? Come back to me. I'm going to open up the website here.
What about you, Prince Abdullah? Biggest differential for this game week?
Let me look at their ownership.
You mentioned Silva. Was he one which you're definitely having in?
Yeah, Silva is only 7%, so maybe Silva.
Yeah.
Antonio is 4%.
A good example of what I was saying is Abdullah mentioned Mikel Antonio. So West Ham play Aston Villa at home. So I think a good example there is go for Jared Bowen instead of Michael Antonio. If you're looking to make up ground, 0.3%, I think, ownership. Antonio's up at 4.1. So, I mean, on his day, Bowen can easily outscore Antonio on his day. So there's a shout for the final day, Jared Bowen.
Yeah, I've got some stats up here from the FF Hub website just on how Antonio for expected FPL points is actually top with Salah just behind. But yeah, I do like his shout with Bowen. He has been playing quite well as well. Right, so what about your free hit team? I made you put together a free hit team for us, didn't I? So I'm just gonna bring that up for the.
You're a cruel man making someone who doesn't have a free hit put a free hit team together.
I bet you it did hurt. Yeah, I knew it would be. Yeah, so talk us through who you've got here. I've got it up on the screen.
Yeah, so there's not very many changes. So I think this is another key point. It goes back to what I said earlier about a wild card. When you play a wild card, you feel like you need to make loads of changes. But if I was on a free hit in 38, there's quite a few players I would keep. So I would keep Pope. I will keep Aurier as well, who's been doing well for me. I think they can get another clean sheet. Bruno Fernandes and Martial would also stay, as would Gabriel Jesus for Man City. So the new guys who will come in, so it'll be Pope in goal, Van Dijk, Aurier and Tarkowski at the back. The two United guys in midfield, along with David Silva and Sterling. And then it would be Jesus, Danny Ings, as much it would pain me to bring him in, and Harry Kane, who's in good form going into the final day. So that would be, again, that's more of a team. I think if you are where you want to be, and it's probably no good to you if you're wanting to make up 50,000 places on the final day. So captaincy then, again, I think it's got to be a Manchester City captain, and hopefully we can predict who's going to start, after the Watford game, or hopefully some early team news, and that can make the decision. I like David Silva as well. Abdullah mentioned him. Like he said, I think he could, if they get a penalty, I think he would step up and take it. And he's been playing well anyway. He doesn't look like a player who should be leaving the club. No, I would love to see him stay for another year. He's been on fire in the last couple of games. He just looks as good as ever. So I think if he starts against Norwich, he should get 10 plus points.
Not against Arsenal in the FA Cup though. He wasn't that good against.
You had to get that one in, didn't you? You've been waiting all season for a result like that.
Well, I've also been waiting to say to Prince Abdullah, I mean, he told me on the last podcast that I would go home very sad after Sheffield United beat Arsenal 1-0 when I went up there. But how are you feeling, Prince, after Arsenal sneaked past you in the FA Cup?
Without our fans, I think if we had our fans in the stadium, you would have had another drive back home. But anyway.
I guess we'll never know. Hey? One which I did notice, Mark, is that you've got Kane in there, and a stat which I noticed from Twitter from Adam Hopcroft. He's saying looks good, but 4 out of the 6 goals since he's returned have been on the counter attack. And Palace in the last game, they don't really allow counter attacks, do they? What are your thoughts over him, over Aubameyang, who are both priced the same?
Yeah, I've seen that tweet from Adam. I think it's a good point. I think Palace are always a tough team to break down, but I don't think they've been as good recently. I think Sakho's been pretty poor in the last few games as well. So I think the thing for me with Kane and Aubameyang is they're two players that I don't like in FPL because of their price, and I like the cheaper strikers. But when it comes to a free hit, I think both of them are ideal for a 1 week punt, because Kane's got the penalties. He's coming off back-to-back braces. Spurs are, have been better recently as well. Aubameyang, he hurt me a few times this season, so that's probably why I haven't included him here. But I just watched the highlights today of that FA Cup game. Scored a brace. He could have had 1 or 2 more as well in that game. So I think he's going into the final day looking good as well. So I think if I redid this team and if I was on a free hit, I probably would actually go Aubameyang over Harry Kane. Looking into it in a bit more detail.
I've got the stats of how Aubameyang and Kane have been getting on since the restart. Actually, since game 32.
It's Watford, isn't it? Is it Watford on the final day for Arsenal?
Yes,
Watford. Watford. The managerless Watford. So, So there's a stats comparison here between Kane and Aubameyang. It just kind of shows people how close it actually is at the moment. Aubameyang winning on shots on target so far. So yeah, interesting. For me, I would definitely go Aubameyang. What about you, Prince? Which one out of the two, Kane and Aubameyang?
I'll go with Aubameyang. He's competing for the top scorer.
Yeah, he's the best.
I think Watford, if they get a draw against City, they're guaranteed to not to get relegated, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm. It's close because I think probably they'll play the game and they need to tie to not to get relegated, because if Bournemouth win, maybe Bournemouth will stay in. So it will be tough, but I think I'll go with Aubameyang over Kane.
I think after everything we've said on this podcast, you can weigh up Harry Kane and versus Aubameyang, for hours and hours, but we all know McBurnie's going to outscore both of them anyway.
Oh my God! No, I mean
hat trick apparently, yeah.
Go with McBurnie and captain him. How about that? Will that give me out of the hook with you guys?
Yeah, if you do that, you've got big cojones if you do that. What about, I've sent you Mark's team, obviously, Prince, his free hit team. Well, how would you critique that? Anyone you don't like? Anyone you think he's missing from that?
I have Pope in my, but I have really strong feeling that Burnley will not have a clean sheet.
Not? Okay.
They will not. So maybe I'll go with Martinez. I will have Trent Alexander for sure. I like his team. I like Jesus. I think if he doesn't play against who they're playing tomorrow, Watford, I think he will be maybe even captain candidate.
Yeah, don't be too polite. Drill into his team.
One big thing missing from my team is a Liverpool midfielder. So Abdullah, you'll probably go for Salah, will you?
Salah is in my team for sure.
Yeah.
He's 2 goals, I think, of the top scorer, right? And Vardy, he didn't score, and I think he has a tough game. They play Chelsea, right? Who does they play?
Leicester play Man United, and Chelsea Wolves, I think, isn't it?
Leicester Man United. So, I mean, I will not have Vardy in my team for sure, and I will have Salah in my team.
What about captaincy? You captain Salah, or will you go for a Man City player, do you think?
I will, if Jesus doesn't start against Watford, I may captain him. Otherwise,
like
it's either Salah or Aubameyang or Sterling.
All good picks, yeah.
Salah's 4 goals off top goal scorer. Jamie Vardy's on 23 and he's on 19.
Have the Chelsea game, right?
Yeah. So I've captained him in that game. So yeah, I am hoping for goals as well. So yeah, I guess we will see. Okay, I can see why you've gone Burnley defence though with their race for the Golden Glove as well. I know Wood's been quoted that they will try their hardest to keep a clean sheet for Pope, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah. Do you know what though? I think I agree with Abdullah. I think this will be the week everybody gets Pope, everyone gets 2 or 3 Burnley defenders on free hit, and then Brighton will score. So I think I do like the Martinez shout. Watford, no manager. It's hard to see them getting anything against Arsenal, so I think he may be the better shout for the final day.
Yeah, he's playing well, and if they
playing really better now.
Yeah, and Martinez, he's a very good goalkeeper. Actually, I was surprised when I've seen him.
He's a good shot stopper. Yeah, I mean, if Arsenal don't play well, you can see him getting saves, whereas if they do play well, then you can see him getting a clean sheet. So, yeah, there's pluses on both there. Okay.
Why do you still have Martial and Fernandes in your team? Don't you think that the Leicester game will be not very easy game?
I've got Rashford as well, so I've got 3 of them. It doesn't.
A free hit.
For a free hit. Yeah. I think that was a very quickly put together free hit team. So I went from 3 Manchester United players to 2 in that one. I think Bruno Fernandes is just almost an auto pick for any team, whether it's a free hit team or just a normal team. And I just think Martial offers so much value as well out of position. And the thing for me, Leicester have been really poor. I mean, if they're going to have Ryan Bennett, Wes Morgan, and the young guy playing left back again, I think Manchester United could beat them quite easily, going by the Spurs game. So, yeah, I think I would still have 2 of them.
Okay.
But
right.
maybe that's just me being a Manchester United fan. So.
Right, okay. We're going to move off now because I'm dying for a piss. So we're going to move off for the Iceman's piss break. So be right back. Okay, and welcome back from the Iceman's piss break. We're going to do captains now, so transfers and captains. I'll come to you first, Prince, because we know you're on free hit, so you're going to make loads of transfers. But who do you reckon your captain is going to be for this week?
As I said, I think if it's City player, I will wait to see who will not play against Watford. If I don't like any of the City players, then I'll go with Salah.
Okay, fair. And Mark, who are your transfers and your captain?
Yeah, so I've got 2 free transfers, so I've left myself pretty flexible, and I really haven't thought about it yet. I'm just going to have to wait and see how the rest of Game Week 37 goes. I think my transfers will be heavily based around Man City. I've got KDB, Foden, and Jesus. So let's, if Foden plays in Game Week 37, I'll probably be worried about it then for Game Week 38, and it'll be probably a matter of switching to Mahrez or David Silva. I think captaincy for me as well will be a Manchester City player, so I'm really banking on early team news, make transfers in the last 15 minutes and deciding captaincy again as well. So it's all about Man City for me in Game Week 38 against Norwich.
Yeah, that's good shouts. And obviously we've seen your free hit team, which you provided, but that will probably change, as you mentioned, as well as the Princes will. But I'd like to thank you both on. I think it's been a great podcast. Thank you for coming on, Prince. It's been great to have you.
Thank you. I'm very happy. To be with you in podcast where I'm leading both of you. I think that would never happen.
You love that. And thank you, Mark. Thank you, FPL General. It's been great to have you on as well.
Cheers for having me, James. I just want to say as well, James, on behalf of everybody in the FPL community, I want to thank you for all the podcasts over the last couple of years. It was one of the first ones I ever went on as a guest before I ever had my own one. So I think you'll be sorely missed. So I just want to say thanks for everything you've provided, and best of luck to you and your missus for the future as well.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. If you want to follow the Prince, his Twitter handle is Saudi49. So it's Saudi and then the 49. And FPL General is at FPL General on Twitter if you want to follow them. So again, thank you for coming on, guys. It's been great. If you liked what you heard today and would like to support the podcast, please do so at patreon.com/FPL Surgery. You can check out our website at fplsurgery.com. Find us on Facebook, SoundCloud, iTunes, Reddit and Twitter, FPL Surgery. And this will be released on YouTube, so just search FPL Surgery on there. And if you'd like to email me, it's info@fplsurgery.com. So good luck in your game weeks, everyone, and up the pod.
Up the pod.
Up the pod.
Let
me close the door. Let me just close the door.
There's an outtake.